legality of a fantasy football league. Hello, Mr. Otunga. I was hoping you could help my friend out with a situation she has been in for a while. A couple months ago, she entered a fantasy league game on Facebook. Okay, so it's on Facebook. She, as well as everyone who played, had to pay $20 entry fee in order to play. My friend ended up winning the game and was supposed to get a $200 cash prize. After a week, she didn't get her money and contacted one of the hosts of the game about it. The co host she had talked to had stopped talking to the other co host. So she told my friend she would figure something out since she was getting paid later in the week. More time passes, and my friend still hasn't been given her money. So she messages again, wondering what's going on. She and the co host started arguing, and it ended with her demanding my friend stop disrespecting her, or she will be blocked and get none of her money. Then she makes a sarcastic comment about how my friend could take her to small claims court, but it would cost more than what she is trying to get. My friend hasn't done anything yet, as she feels it would be a tough process, and she is dealing with some personal, I can't say about it, but I guess she's dealing with some personal issues at the moment. What do you suggest for this situation? Okay, so let's see if I get this right. So, and we're going to make a hypothetical out of this because again, I'm not giving advice on this, but we're going to use this to educate and discuss. So you have a fantasy football pool amongst friends. Say there's 4 friends, whatever it is, but everybody pays $20 to get into this, and then the winner's going to get $200. The fact that this is like a private bet amongst friends, and so it actually is an agreement and somewhat of a verbal contract here, believe it or not, even though this is just a bet amongst friends. So this isn't technically like gambling. This is a private bet, and courts would actually look to enforce this because you can see that there was an offer. They set this up there, and there was acceptance of this. People paid $20. The consideration was the money, which I've said before is necessary in every contract. It's what you're giving up and what you could gain. That's the money. And so then, there was the outcome, the resolution. This individual won, but was not paid. So could this matter be taken to court, small claims court? It absolutely could. It absolutely could. And I think that a judge would likely rule on this, that the money should be paid. Given that you could provide, text messages, screenshots, if you're able to provide that showing, the money put in, I think that it would probably be, it could likely be in the plaintiff's favor. Now, that being said, doesn't mean that you could compel the person to pay. But is it worth it over the amount of money? For $200, you're going to spend way more than that, even just going to small claims court. But I think if you start adding zeros onto the values, then that might change your mind. So I think it just comes down to how much money is at stake and is it worth it? But if you ask me, if I was in a situation like this, I'm thinking about it like with my friends in fantasy football. If one of my friends did that, it wasn't going to pay the money, just was, being a jerk about it or whatever. How much did I lose? $20. Well, for $20, I've now gotten rid of that person from my life because that's going to be it. I'm not going to deal with them again. Not going to enter any more fantasy football pools with that person. Yeah. Anything else we have there, Steve?
One other thing on this that I think might be considered a misconception because it varies by state, and this poster didn't give us their state. But is fantasy football considered gambling?
I don't believe it is actually. Fantasy football it's generally legal. Like it's a bet amongst friends. So it's not considered gambling because there's no casino, there's no house, there's nobody taking a take, from it. So it's just seen as a bet amongst friends, which courts will legally recognize.
And specifically a game of skill.
Oh, and I'm sorry. That too. And fantasy football has traditionally been seen as a game of skill. So it's not technically just like gambling at a casino where you're taking your chances or odds. But fantasy football does indeed require some skill to win. Like you got to know what players are going to do what, and the more accurate you are, the better you'll do. So technically, it is a game of skill, and that's how courts have seen it.
And brief gripe of mine: somehow courts don't see poker as a game of skill.